Yeah.
It's awesome. Hi, everyone.
Hey guys.
Hi.
Happy Wednesday. Hi, Chip. Chip's joining us from Kansas. Lisa Johnson, it's good to see you again. And Jean. Hi, Jean. Thanks for joining us. Carlos is also a dad. His daughter, Katrina. Is Katrina still in her 20s, Carlos? Yeah. You type or unmute. And then Sri, we have quite a few parents on here. Awesome. Hi, everyone. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. A couple Zoom rules. For those of you who are new or haven't joined in a while, welcome back and welcome. Please mute yourself if you're not speaking. We recommend speaker view for presentation, though video sharing is optional, although we love to see all your friendly faces and smiling faces. So thank you. I loved everybody who joined is like already on the video, which is awesome. Please type all questions and comments into the chat. We will have a Q&A at the end, so feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question and introduce yourself to our guest speaker. We use this time to connect every single week, so we want to get to know you. You feel free to tell us more about yourself and really connect with our guest speaker at the end. We have a quick update from Autism Tree. There's 566 brand new families who have come into the fold of Autism Tree since January 1st of 2023. This is a record for us. We did 556 new families all of last year, January to December. So we are past that now officially. And it's just mind-blowing to see our reach grow. So welcome to all of our new families. We're so happy for you to be here and be a part of our Autism Tree family. We offer 20 programs that are family programs that do over 200 events a year. That are all free to attend. All you have to do is register online on our website. We currently have 9 programs in person in San Diego County, 7 that are hybrid, and 4 are virtual. And we serve all families, families of all ages, or kids of all ages, autistic adults with all ages. Okay, and then we have 18 upcoming events in October. Always check back on our social media. We constantly post new events and on our Facebook event calendars and our website calendars. In October, that's happening. We have events this week. We have our virtual parent happy hour, which I'm really excited. For our new parents, it's great to introduce you to other parents in our community who have been with us for a while, just to connect and get to know each other. That will be this Friday, and it's on Zoom, so people can join from anywhere. It'll be 6 p.m. Pacific time. So register online if you want to get that Zoom link. We also have our Lego play group that's happening that we do once a month. That'll be on Saturday at 10 a.m. And then in San Diego County. We also have our adaptive dance class, which is one of our hybrid programs, and that's for ages 13 through 24. We alternate age groups every week. So we do our 6 through 12, and now we're doing 13 through 24. That will be this Saturday, the 7th at 12 p.m. at Tap Fever Studios, and also online via Google Meet. So feel free to join and let us know if you have any questions or if you want to sign up. We also have 559 videos on our YouTube channel as of today. That's amazing. We do post these Lunch and Learns weekly. 134 of those Lunch and Learns of those videos are our Lunch and Learns, and they're uploaded on our YouTube channel as a playlist in its own, so you can share the playlist, go back and watch any other resources that you might have missed. So thank you so much to everybody who subscribes to our YouTube channel. And we're going to extend a huge, big welcome and thank you to Eric Goll, of empowering ability for joining us and being our guest speaker today. We find Eric really inspiring, and we invited him to be a part of our Global Neurodiversity Conference that's happening on Friday, November 3rd. Eric is going to be on our siblings panel, which has been in the works for the past decade, and we are really excited to have our first siblings panel at this year's conference. And I'll go ahead and let Eric tell his story. So I'm going to hand it over to Eric. And thank you, Eric, for being here.
Awesome. Thanks for the intro, Rebecca. You saw my video. Perfect. That's the exact question that I was about to ask you. So I just want to put some slides up here. Y'all can see that, I hope. So as Rebecca mentioned, I'm a sibling. So this is a picture of me and my older sister, Sarah. So I want to tell you a little bit about my family and family story, just so you know a little bit more about me and my background, where I come from. So I guess going back to 2015, I was not super engaged in my family. I just was kind of doing my own thing, really focused on career in kind of the business world. And middle of the day, I get a phone call from my mom, which is pretty odd. So anyways, I answer the phone, and I was kind of busy in the middle of something, and I picked up the phone. I'm like, "Hey, Mom, what's up?" And the phone was kind of quiet. And then my mom starts to speak, and I can hear kind of her voice trembling. And she says, "Eric, I just can't do it anymore." And I felt my stomach drop, and I intuitively knew what my mom meant. But I was like, what do you mean, Mom? And she said, "Sarah has to move out." And I sorry, just bringing me back to that moment, thinking about it and telling the story. So I can feel those emotions. But my mom, she was just completely burnt out, physically, emotionally. She had been really the primary caregiver to my sister for 30 years prior to that, and doing her best to provide the best life possible for my sister. But it just has started to result in a lot of conflict, and my sister being completely dependent on my mom. And so at that point in time, my mom, my sister needed to figure out some sort of a solution to move forward. And my sister at that point was really just living a tag along life with my parents, kind of just following what they were doing. And she was at home most of the time. So we really need to figure out how to support Sarah to build her own life, because for like many people that have a developmental disability, supports kind of fall off a cliff after high school, right? If depending on the age of your loved one or yourself, if you're a self-advocate, you might have experienced that as well, or you likely did have experienced that if you're of that age. So we had to figure out how to support Sarah to build her own life, and we didn't know how to do that. So we went on this journey of discovery to figure out how to help Sarah to create her own life. And today, I'll fast forward to today. So at that point in time, Sarah was living with mom and dad. Things had to change. We needed to find a different solution. And fast forward to today, my sister lives in her own apartment by herself with her pet cat, Annie. She's volunteering at the local YMCA. She's getting herself up in the morning. She's doing her grocery shopping with some support. She's doing meal planning. She's doing her laundry. Really, she's managing her own life, exploring her interests. I keep trying to nudge her towards paid employment. That's been a bit of a tough one. But working on using my influence around that. But a massive change, right? From where she was in 2015, living with my parents making all decisions for her, my mom providing, absolutely all the caregiving, including, doing all of those things that I just mentioned that my sister is now doing on her own or with some support. So really, that's kind of the journey we went on. And in between there, my sister actually lived with me for about 2 years as a kind of an in-between step, because my parents and I guess my sister didn't really believe that she could live in her own place, her own apartment. So anyways, we figured it out, and obviously my parents believe it now. So from there, I was taking my family experience and realizing that there's other families that are having a similar experience where, they were asking me, how did you do it? How did you prepare your sister for more independence? How did you start to build loving and trusting relationships that around your sister, where people, where she could go to those people rather than just always going to mom or dad? How did you start to think about supporting your sister to create her own home that was best for her, not a group home? So I started coaching families, and I went and I got a coaching certification. And leading up till now, I have online courses. So I've got an online course called the Life Plan Coaching Program. And I run workshops. So I've got an upcoming workshop called the Life Plan Workshop starting on October 17th. I can drop a link in the chat if you're interested in registering for that. And I'll it's hard for me to get that while I'm speaking. So I'll circle back to it. Rebecca, remind me if you could. So yeah, so anyways, up till now, I've had the privilege of actually supporting over 25,000 families to start working through this process of creating a life plan, which has been pretty amazing. And a life plan is individualized to the person and not focused on, I guess, the special options, as I'll call them. And I want to talk a little bit about that with you. So I don't like saying the word special needs, because I just want to preface this with, before I start going into it, because when we say special, it automatically others our loved one, right? So we're already separating or segregating our loved one from the rest of society as soon as we say the term special needs, and we're painting the picture in that person's head. So I'm saying it here because it's common lingo that we use, and it also, I think, there's special things that are designed for people with developmental disabilities, right? So such as a day program, a group home, and really what that turns out to be is somewhere for your loved one to be, and for someone to watch them, right? And these are often pretend environments, and they're outside of ordinary community. And what does this start to lead to, right? So it starts to lead to a life of being served and devalued by others because our loved one is viewed as other versus being a part of. So what are the outcomes, right? When this type of life happens to our loved one? And again, I just want to mention this, that as families and as people, if you're a self-advocate here, you have a disability, society pushes us onto that path, and we're told that it's the default path, right? We're told that that's the only path maybe available, right? So no judgment from me around this. This is the path that my family was on up until we started kind of going on this journey to figure out what would be best for my sister. So however, when our loved one is on that kind of special path, the outcomes are that person with a disability is viewed as not capable, right? And when a person's viewed as not capable, they're dependent, right? It results in really isolation, a lack of friendship, and it results in mostly paid people being in that person's life rather than freely given relationship. It results in a lack of choice and control over that person's life, which leads to decreased life satisfaction. And it often leaves that person, as I mentioned, isolated. And when we're isolated, we're vulnerable to mistreatment. So some pretty negative outcomes as a result of the special path, right? And we're not often kind of told about these things, but it's really important that we are aware of it, because, if you're a parent, your biggest fear is thinking about, well, what happens when I can't be there for my loved one. And if we're just on the default path, right, these are some of the outcomes that are likely to happen, right? Because we've seen this through history to your loved one. So we want to be aware of this. And I know I'm sounding a little doom and gloom here, but there is hope and there is a different path. Okay. So cheer up with me a little bit here. There's a second path that I want to talk to you about, which I call the awesome ordinary life path, which I teach families. So I'll just skip past this. So what does it look like? Right. So it looks like supporting that person with a disability to live and contribute in ordinary places with ordinary people, just kind of the common places in your community rather than the special places. The awesome ordinary life path looks like an individualized plan and individualized support, right? And I'm not saying that a person doesn't need support, but if they do, we need to think about what's the best support for that individual rather than group support. We're thinking about real environments, right? Because that's where a person can be included. What are the ordinary community opportunities? And it's thinking about, instead of being on the special path, you're being served, right? A lot of the time, it's thinking about how can that person be of service? Because when we're of service, then we're viewed as valued, right? And being viewed as valued, when we're viewed as valued by people, there's typically better outcomes on the other side of that for us. So what are the outcomes of the awesome ordinary life path? Well, the person gets the opportunity to grow and learn and have the potential for more independence, because, you know, if we start with the view of the person's capable versus starting with the view that the person's incapable, there's a lot more potential and opportunity, right, for that person to grow and to learn. On the awesome ordinary life path, there's much more opportunity for freely given relationships, right? And, you know, thinking about strategies to engage those people over the long term to help answer that question of who will be there for when you can't, if you're a parent. Having a meaningful day and contributing in valued ways, right? And often what I hear from families kind of when I start working with them is like, oh, my loved one doesn't even want to get up in the morning. It's like, well, do they have a reason to? Right. So if we have a reason to get up in the morning, like, you know, I gotta get up in the mornings because I'm excited to go to work, or some people just have to go to work. Right? Depends on the position you're in, but or if there's something that you can contribute to, or an interest group that you're involved in, like, you know, something meaningful for you, a reason to be motivated to get up in the morning. A home of their own. So that, again, individualized for the person. I'm not talking about a group home here. And all this results in more choice and control over your life. And then, yeah, sorry, I couldn't, on the software that I have here, I was blocking the bottom point. So I'm also helping families think about safeguards. So how can we protect your loved one from their vulnerabilities, right? Often, I see parents kind of shielding their loved one that has a disability, which makes a ton of sense because you want to keep your loved one safe, but that's not a long-term solution. It might be working right now, but we want to start to think about what are the ways that we can safeguard our loved one, where it's not just you as the safeguard, right? Where it's, you know, how can we teach our loved one to develop where they have more awareness around some of those safety things, and what are the protection measures that we can put in place that aren't just you. So this is the path that I walk families down, the awesome ordinary path. And to do this, really, there's a few things we need to do, right? So we need to think about what's possible for your loved one, and looking at the ordinary options, because the ordinary options kind of break us free of that. Like, if we think about the special options, maybe they fit in this box, right? But if we think about the ordinary options, right, we're like blasting that box apart, and we're thinking about, you know, what are all the options available to anybody, right? So there's a lot more richness in that type of a life. So, and yes, we might have to figure out how to make those ordinary options work, but it's worth it. So thinking about what's possible, thinking about best practices to support our loved one to move in the direction of the awesome ordinary life, and then creating a vision and a plan to make that happen. So that's the work that I do with families. And again, I'll just get it now before I forget. The free workshop link. So if this is resonating with you, I'm going to go deeper into all this stuff in the upcoming workshop.
And we'll include that workshop link in our recap email as well. We have to send out a recap email that has resources from our guest speaker. So,
okay, awesome. Thanks, Rebecca. So it's just empoweringability.org/workshop. It's in the chat. So yeah, so I go deeper in the free workshop. So I invite you to join me there. But do y'all want to do a little bit more here?
yeah,
I'm happy to go. We have time for me to keep talking here, Rebecca, or do we need to shift to?
yes, we do. Yeah, go for it. I'd say we
Okay.
have another 10-15 minutes.
All right. Folks, do y'all want to learn more? Give me like a yes in the chat or a thumbs up. See, Lisa's giving me a thumbs up. Awesome. Erica's giving me a thumbs up. Jean. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So this might be a little hard to see. Can y'all see that? Or if you can share put me on my spotlighted.
Yeah.
Rebecca, I am? Okay.
It's a little bit blurry, but I could see it.
Okay. I think I've got the wrong slide in here. So it might be hard to read all the fine print, but don't worry about that. Let's see. I can maybe make it a bit bigger for you. Okay.
That looks great.
A little better? Okay. So at a high level, this is the model that I support families through to create that awesome ordinary life plan. So the first part is just getting to the point of saying like, yes, this is something that I'm committing to do, right? Like the reality is that if we don't create a life plan for our loved one or a plan for our loved one, a vision for our loved one, then we're just accepting the default. And the default is the system, right? The social system. And the social system does not have a very good plan for your loved one, right? The plan that the social system has for your loved one at the end of the day would result in that individual often being institutionalized, right? So living in, being forced to live in a group home with strangers that they don't know, and they're not choosing to live there, and they're losing control of really their choices and a lot of their freedoms living in that sort of environment. So the other piece around that is there's a lot of harm and trauma that occurs in those types of settings. So the default is not a good option, right? So we really need to be proactive around this. And then, the default also is if we're not doing this planning, then our loved one can remain isolated. That person with disability can remain isolated. And that's also leaves the potential for more mistreatment or harm towards that person, right? So that's not what we want. So we want to be thinking about proactively creating a plan, because that gives you more control, more power over creating a better life for that person. So we need to engage, we need to commit. If we're at this point, I typically give families a check mark because you're interested. So I'll quickly go through the 7 steps that I walk families through. And again, I go deeper on these steps in the life plan workshop. And then where we really get into doing the deeper work and building a full plan is in the course that I have for families called the Life Plan Coaching Program. So anyways, I'll go over this quickly. So connect. We need to first take some time to reflect on who the person is. So if you're a parent and you're creating that life plan for your loved one, we need to be grounded in who our loved one is, because sometimes we get stuck in the day to day, or we get stuck in the weeds, and sometimes we paint not the nicest picture of our loved one. So we need to step back and remember who that person is. Remember who what their personality is, the essence of the person, their strengths, their interests. So we really need to be clear on those things before we start this process and start creating a plan. There's some other stuff to connect, but for the sake of time, I'll just kind of move forward here. So step number 2 is capability. You can interchange the word capability with independence, kind of common lingo that we use as families. So capability, it's really focusing on how do we prepare your loved one for independence? How do we, and what do I mean by that? I mean, how do we support a person with a disability to do more on their own? And that can be with support, right? It doesn't mean that a person's not going to need any support, but how can we help a person to grow? And there's lots of ways that we can do that, right? Regardless of a person's disability and significance level of a disability. People with developmental disabilities are vastly underestimated. So when I'm working with families, we're working to kind of undo some of that and work to figure out how can we support your loved one to continue to grow. Step 3 is around relationships. And here in relationships, I specifically focus on unpaid neurotypical relationships. So the unpaid part is probably self-explanatory. Simply paid people leave, right? And we're wanting to think about longer term relationships. So the neurotypical part is there's nothing wrong with neurodiverse relationships. First off, let me preface with that. But often there's lots of opportunity for somebody who is neurodiverse to talk to or interact with other people that are neurodiverse. So that's not really what our loved one probably doesn't need more of those types of relationships. What's often missing is relationships with neurotypical people. And that's an important piece for a person with a disability, because if mom or dad or that go-to person is no longer there, who are those other people that are going to be there in our loved one's life? So that's really what we need to work on, building and creating and fostering and strengthening and deepening for a person, for our loved one. And that's where I focus with families. And there's strategies on how to do that. One being, for example, a support circle. And that's something that I go much deeper on in the course that I have. Step number 4 is contribution. So it's developing valued roles and meaning in our loved one's day, right? A reason to be excited, a reason to get up in the morning. This could look like paid work. This could look like contributing in ordinary interest groups. And when we're contributing, we feel, again, like we're valued. And that has a lot of other ripple effects, right? When we feel like we're valued, we have more confidence, right? So if somebody gets a paid job, the families I work with, when their loved one gets a paid job, it impacts everything, right? It impacts their entire, they're more capable at home. They start to engage with more people. It impacts their relationships. It's huge. So thinking about how do we support our loved one to build more valued roles and contribute. Step number 5, home. So thinking about creating an individualized home. So instead of, I think often in society, it's assumed people with developmental disabilities are going to live in a group home. Well, that assumption is broken, right? Like that's a myth. Like there's many people with developmental disabilities living in their own home, right? And that it can look many different ways. It could be, living in their own apartment, living with a neurotypical roommate or a couple of neurotypical roommates. There's many different ways that people live. So let's consider all the different ways that people live and think about what might be best for your loved one. And that's the type of thinking that I support families with. Then we got step number 6, support and finance. So this is thinking about how do we set up just the right amount of support for your loved one. And then step number 7 is awesomeness. So that's thinking about, we've kind of strategically talked about these important life domains from step 2 to 6, but 7, we want to consider, well, what are the other important elements of that person's life? So it could be things around fun or hobbies or adventure or romance. We want to make sure that we're creating a vision for those things. And then we want to create a vision in each of these areas and a plan and action steps to move forward towards that awesome ordinary life. So I'll pause there. I've covered, I think, a good snapshot of kind of who I am and how I work with families. So Rebecca, maybe we'll pause there and go for questions.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to open it up to anybody who has any questions for Eric or wants to introduce themselves. Anybody want to go first?
Sure, I'll go first. Hi, my name is Lisa Johnson. I currently work for the San Diego Regional Center. Prior to that, I did 20 years for the County of San Diego in-home supportive services. And it's really nice to be able to hear that somebody has finally put this kind of package together. I had one individual, and even with all my background, I just didn't realize as many support services that were out there. And when I was with in-home supportive services, I had one individual. She was an adult woman. She was neurodiverse. She had a severe intellectual disability, physical disability, blind, and she could communicate maybe about 10 words through ASL. And she lived on her own. And I had my first time meeting her, I thought, there's no way. How can this person with all these obstacles against her? But she had all the right support agencies in place. She had in-home supportive services. She had the regional center. She had independent or supportive living services in place. And it just really opened my eyes to support services that were out there and helped me try to be able to prepare my parents too, when their kids start getting older, apply for Section 8, all these other things, so that if you ever decide that you want them to be on their own, the support services are in place for them. But it was quite an eye-opener. I learned a lot.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Lisa. That's a great example, right, for us to be thinking about. Again, like no matter how significant a person's disability or need level is, we can think about how do we help them to create what I call that awesome ordinary life, and how do we start to integrate elements of that into that person's life, or incorporate those elements into their life and do it over time. But I think the key is, right, you kind of mentioned it, is like starting with the assumption that it's possible versus starting the assumption that it's not possible, right? So a lot of it has to do with how we're thinking, because if we just assume that that person, no, they can't live an ordinary life, then they're never going to. Right. So our thinking around it is so important, because if we don't start to question our thinking and we don't start to explore the ordinary, then we're never going to get there.
And I love, that's what I personally love so much about your message, Eric. I mean, it's really on the pulse of what I see people in the neurodiversity community talk about, is like that change in mindset. And I feel like I've seen, and I've only been with Autism Tree for 5 years, but with all the work that I've seen, we've changed our concepts from like autism awareness, which we did set the foundation for like, these past 20-30 years. But now I think we're ready for that shift to autism acceptance and neurodiverse acceptance completely, and that type of thinking, and that you so eloquently put, but that the challenge here is that mindset challenges society as a whole to be more inclusive. And like we were just talking with another Otto Lana, who's another our amazing teens who and young adult who is a typer and is non-speaking, and but he doesn't like to use that terminology. He prefers multimodality communicator, and his whole message now is really pushing universal design as well, which is what we are getting behind, so that it is capable, it is possible for them to just be integrated into society and have that ordinary life. So I love when I hear Otto saying he did a whole lunch and learn with Angie Kim, who's also going to be speaking at our conference, who's a, you know, amazing New York Times bestselling author, international bestselling author. And their message is, you know, going from impossible to I'm possible, and really changing the way that we think about our loved ones who are neurodiverse.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. I just wanted to add that. But Carlos, go ahead. I know you have your hand up. Would love to hear from you.
Oh, just quickly, some of you know my daughter, and she's somewhat independent. Well, the situation that we face with her is she lives in our house. She actually has a job. She actually has, she is paying some bills. You know, she has her own credit card. She's paying those bills. I'm sorry, I have a jet flying overhead. I live near Miramar Air Base. But I mean, I've talked with her about this. What will happen when her mom and dad are gone? Because she's you know, she can't live by herself. Should she move to the East Coast to be near her brother? But then she can't just move in with his, you know, her brother and his wife and their family. You know, we have to strategize how she becomes independent in a way that she has minimal need of support from her brother when the time comes. So that's the thing that, you know, Katrina's mom, dad, and her brother are working with. You know, certainly they'll have an inheritance. Thank the Lord for that. But still, what do you do with that? How do you manage that? And that's the thing that I'm going to need to. Excuse me, Katrina is going to need to address to prepare for the time when her parents are no longer around. So that's how should I say? I don't know if I put that as a question, but that's a challenge that I have. And I was wondering if your services would work with something like that.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Carlos. I guess first off, it sounds like, I think you said your daughter's name is Katrina. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, it sounds like Katrina's, you know, already started to build her own life, which is awesome, right? Sounds like she, you know, she's got a paid job. She's doing some things that are on her own, even if she needs some support. But there's some great kind of building blocks that are already there. And then what I hear you saying is you're thinking about that big ominous question of, well, what does Katrina's life and support look like if you're not there, her mom's not there? And what does that look like for her brother as well, right? So there's definitely steps that you can take to start to think about that and to start to support, prepare Katrina for more independence, but also think about what would it look like for her to have her own place, or what would the best kind of living situation potentially look like, and how do you start to take steps towards that when she's got the support from you or from her mom, right? Because you're better off to be taking those steps with your support versus without it, right? It becomes a lot more challenging. So these are the things that I definitely support families through. So if you're interested, I welcome you to join the free workshop. And yeah, if you think it's a fit, maybe even the course later down the line. But it's definitely possible. And the other thing I want to just put in your mind, Carlos, is like back in 2015, So my sister would attend like a day program a couple times a week. 5 days a week, she was like in my parents' basement on Facebook doing word searches. My mom would get her up in the morning, like more or less completely dependent on my mom. We thought at that time that my sister would need like 24-hour a day, 7-day a week care. Today, my sister lives in her own apartment alone by herself with her pet cat, Annie, which she takes care of. Mm-hmm. Right. So to say that it's not possible, it's definitely possible. There's a lot of figuring out, right, Carlos? But it is doable. So yeah, that's the type of work that I support families to kind of think through.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for answering the question. Yeah,
thanks.
We'll look into the free workshop.
Awesome.
Hi, Eric. I just wanted to thank you and share my what resonates with me and what your message is and what you have created in existence and how important it is for every individual to apply these 7 steps to their own life. My background is in aging, so I'm always thinking of the progression of as we age and how every individual at some point is going to go to that space and time in their life where you think, who is going to take care of me, or who has my back? If you have kids, if you don't have kids, if your parents are alive, if they're no longer, if your kids, if you have kids and what age they are and how it relates to your space when you need support. So it's just very, very interesting. And I love that the step number 1 is to connect, and connecting to each individual and finding the key to start building those blocks with them. And for me, in my personal experience, you know, my dad was in his late 70s, and I, you know, undiagnosed autism, or for sure neurodiverse in some way. And I saw what happens if you don't have any idea of how to build that support for yourself. And seeing the loneliness and the sadness and the loss of life and not wanting to wake up or do anything or connect with your loved ones, all of that. I just saw the opposite of that through the deterioration of my dad. And I think it's just incredible that this is in existence to apply these steps for our lives, to live a full, beautiful life that we all are capable of doing with the right building blocks. And I think it's just amazing that you have created this to share. And like what Rebecca was saying, it's the best time, I think, as a progressive society, that we are there to start accepting these as normal in life and to help each other.
Thanks for sharing, Erica, and appreciate you sharing your personal experience with your dad and your focus of work. So thank you.
Chip has his hand raised. Go ahead, Chip.
Yeah, Eric, number 1, kudos for the guts and the foresight that you have in your approach. Too often we get mired, we get locked into a system, and we don't give our clients enough credit for their entrepreneurship, for their ability to be independent. At one time, I was teaching adults life skills. And what I found was more important than presenting the program was empowerment. You need to empower your clients, and sometimes you have to take a chance. It doesn't mean that you abandon them, but you need to let go of the apron strings at some time and hope that they do well. Will there be mistakes made? Yes, but that's not the end of the world, because you can learn from those mistakes and know what not to do. So again, I admire for what you're doing, and hopefully one day I'll do the same thing. Thank you, Eric.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Chip. And like, I completely agree with you. And what you were saying there just kind of made me think about, like, that's the importance of kind of doing the work that I'm talking about as a parent, right? If you have a loved one with a developmental disability, because like if we just have someone that's supporting our loved one to learn life skills, for example, whether it's, I don't know, cooking or doing laundry, whatever skill we want to pick. If we're not, as a parent or a caregiver, if we're not thinking about our role in that, then what's going to happen is we're probably going to block our loved one from actually being able to grow, even if they're learning that skill outside of our support or our family home, because there's these patterns that exist between a parent and their child or adult child, right? And often we get set in our ways as a caregiver, right? Like it has to be done this way. There's a right way and there's a wrong way. And if you're not doing it the right way, then you're doing it the wrong way. And I need to show you, like, or step in, or, you know, or it's taking too long to do something, or, you know, you only got one step out of 10 right. So, and I get it, like these things can be frustrating, and it's an investment to be thinking about, well, what, as a, you know, parent or caregiver, like, what is my role in either supporting my loved one to grow, or supporting my loved one to have choice, supporting my loved one to have opportunity, and where I'm actually getting in the way. And some of those things are like extremely difficult to, I guess, acknowledge or work through. But that's part of the work that we have to do as well, to be able to allow our loved one to grow, especially if they're living with us. So thanks for the comment, Chip. It just made me think of that.
Love it. All of these are great conversations. Any other people who have last minute hellos or anything to Eric? Sweet Cindy. And then I just want to give a shout out to Jeff, because he put in the comments that he happens to be living in his own apartment since 2015, which is awesome. So
Love that, Jim.
I love to hear Jeff introduce himself to you, Eric.
Yes, Eric. Of course, my name is Jeff Snyder. I've been a core team leader for Autism Tree since 2019. I'm actually from Massachusetts, and yes, I've actually been living in my own apartment since 2015, and a lot of the anxieties that develop, I think a lot of parents and caregivers, I think they tend to get very it's a very anxious moving process if you have someone who is neurodivergent and wanting to live on their own. I mean, I wanted to, you know, move out for several years prior to that, but it's more about, but I think it's, if someone is going to move out, they should take things in baby steps. Like step one, learn how to manage, like, you know, basic life skills. Number two, you know, talk about, you know, how to stay safe, you know, make sure you lock the door. And I also have an alarm installed in my apartment, so that gives an extra layer of protection. But you want to help them prepare without being overly protective.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate you sharing that, and congrats on having your own place. I know those probably, you know, you mentioned those anxieties maybe that your parents had, and, you know, I'm sure there was a lot to kind of work through for you and your family. But you know, I agree with what you're saying in terms of thinking about, you know, where a person could potentially be vulnerable, and then safeguarding around that, right? So learning the proper process or procedures around front door safety, as an example, right?
Yep.
And then maybe there's technology that can support with that, or other things too. But thinking about those safeguards, yeah, definitely important.
Yep.
I kind of want to share something about Jeff, if you guys don't mind. Jeff, I'm so blown away. I got this text about you and I was like, how did Jeff not share this with me? Oh my gosh. It has to do with what is your relationship with the Flutie Foundation? Because you were on, let me read the text. Jeff, um, okay, you were on the big screen at Fenway.
Yes, I was.
And what were you doing when you were on the big screen at Fenway?
I was actually emceeing. I was one of the MCs for their 25th anniversary concert.
So this was for the Flutie Foundation's 25th anniversary.
That is correct. Yes.
And I'm seeing on this text that they had over 100 music performers,
Yes.
all on the spectrum,
Yes.
and 7,000 in attendance.
Correct.
I mean, that's rock star, Jeff. I just wanted
Yep.
to share it with everyone. So, Jeff, tell everyone, what do you do for the Flutie Foundation?
I'm one of their Flutie fellows, and so they're supporting me and helping me get more involved as a advocate and public speaker. As a matter of fact, I just came back from a speaking engagement that I did down in South Carolina, and I also did it with a new Flutie fellow. His name is Armando Bernal. He's from Houston. So we went to South Carolina and told our respective stories about and our connections with autism. I did a new version of my presentation, Autism and Disney Characters, and that was a new that was an overall success. And so I've I also take part in various other events with Flutie. As a matter of fact, during the month of October, they have two 5Ks that I'll be attending. One is on October 15th in Providence at Johnson and Wales University, and then the other is on October 29th up in Natick. So I mean, I do whatever I can to help out the organization and for them to help me as well. So
I love it because a little known fact is Doug Flutie helped us start Autism Tree when he was a San Diego Charger. Our first ever event was Monday Night Football with Doug Flutie at the Hilton Torrey Pines. We had 500 people attend, and that is honestly what put us on the map. So it made me smile extra deep seeing all the stuff that you're involved with the Flutie Foundation. They're a wonderful family and foundation that honestly helped us start Autism Tree 20 years ago. So fun stuff. I think, Eric, I really wanted you to see that the Autism Tree community has a lot of, we have thousands of families, but we're in our second generation. And, I love having Jeff share his story because I want to see more families having their loved one live on their own, like Jeff and your sister, Sarah. That is the goal.
Yeah, I agree. And Jeff, so important that you're sharing your story, and appreciate you.
no problem. And I just sent you my the link to my website if you're ever interested in checking it out.
Okay, great. I'll check it out.
Did we miss anybody on this lunch and learn today? Who is on here that we haven't got to see or hear about?
I know Cindy's on here. I'm not sure if she can share her screen.
Oh, in Pennsylvania?
Yeah.
Oh, good. I got to make sure I want to see you,
Cindy.
I got to put a gallery on so I can
See everyone.
yeah. I don't know why I'm still not seeing. Hi, Cindy.
She's our East Coast liaison, Eric. So she's actually closer to you than we are.
Cool. Hey,
So
Cindy.
Cindy, Eric's in Canada. But I think it's really great because on our pre-call, I don't know if Eric, you illuminated this with everyone, but when we were talking before we went live, I was taking notes and Eric said that he had over 5,000 people, 5,300 people signed up for his workshop. And out of that, 80% of them were in the United States, 15% were in Canada, and 5% were outside of those two countries, other countries. So I think that this is really exciting. And if you haven't signed up for our Global Neurodiversity Conference, please do. If you can come in person, please come, because our sibling panel is going to be virtual, but Eric will be on that panel. And I think, as Rebecca said, we've been working on it for a decade, and it's just we're really excited. Our chairman feels that this is going to be our best neurodiversity conference we've had yet in 10 years. So, and Eric has a part in that. I think what it is that you can see that we are evolving, and this is representative of the model that we want to be part of and that we want to see growing within our own individual families and loved ones that are part of the foundation. So it's been a huge blessing today, Eric, to have you on here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure to meet you all and have the opportunity to share a little bit. So thank you for having me.
Well, I'd love a group picture before we all go. It's tradition. All right, so everybody just smile at your camera and I'll take a screenshot. Ready? 3, 2, 1, cheese. Perfect. Thank you again, Eric. Hope everyone has a great week.
Have a beautiful day. Thank you.
Take care, guys.
Rebecca, stay on with me.